Hello, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to take a second to congratulate Mr. Harold E.K. I hope I pronounced his name correct. It's E.K.E.H. He's from Long Island, and he was actually accepted to all the Ivy League schools he applied to. He was also accepted, I believe, to Johns Hopkins, MIT, and some other places, Vanderbilt, and some schools that are very, very good. And I respect it. I think that's great. Now, make sure you don't forget, though, that HBCUs, especially the leading HBCUs, are every bit as good for black students as the leading white universities. The only difference is that white universities have been around longer. They have more wealth because whites have spent hundreds of years stealing wealth from black people. And that wealth has been transferred down to children who then are able to run big universities like Harvard and Yale with multi billion dollar endowments, while even the largest HBCUs only have an endowment that's a fraction of all of the major white universities. In fact, if you took the endowments of all the HBCUs combined, it wouldn't add up to the endowment of even a school like USC, which is a solid university, but it's not an Ivy League, it's not top 10, anything like that. So I think that's really important to understand. If I have a choice in terms of where I want to send my daughter, I send her to Spelman over Harvard, Yale, anywhere else. For my son, Morehouse is just as good of a pick as any other school in the country. So let's just keep that in mind as we congratulate our kids for going to schools that were built and created by white people for white people that kind of continue a Eurocentric way of thinking. So again, but there's no disrespect to those schools. I think you can get a good education at those institutions. But one of the things I want to really also make sure you keep in mind, I shared this with the students I spoke to here at the University of Denver, and I was explaining to them that going to school is not the same as education. Education is not the same as knowledge. Knowledge is not the same as wisdom. Wisdom is not the same as critical thinking skill. So, going to school, going to even to a so-called elite university, it means your brain's going to be filled with something. You're going to be heavily educated, but you may also be heavily indoctrinated into a way of thinking. You may be you may be heavily miseducated, as I see a lot of highly educated black people who some of whom don't know how to use that power of education for good as opposed to evil. It's just like the power of hip hop. Hip hop is something that can transform lives, transform minds. And hip hop was originally being used to empower black people back when you had Public Enemy, KRS-One, and X Clan teaching black pride, education, and political involvement and social improvement, things like that. Even Curtis Blow bringing attention to the serious issues going on in the hood. And then what happened was the gun was turned back on us, where hip hop is now being used, unfortunately, in many cases, not in all cases, but it's being used on the radio anyway by big white corporations to promote, sexual promiscuity, black on black violence, the genocide occurring in our communities, mass incarceration, excessive alcohol consumption, and drug abuse. And those are the things that are designed to keep black men's minds enslaved and to keep us from being the best that we can be. Because no group of people has ever prospered while a large percentage of their culture is spending their time getting high and drunk and getting into stupidity and killing each other. One of the things I want to talk about too, in terms of Harold's situation, which again it really inspires me because I know he worked very very hard to accomplish what he has achieved. I want people to understand the importance of the investment of education in building what I call your own financial Juneteenth. FinancialJuneteenth.com is one of our websites that we have for financial literacy. I hope you'll check it out. I think you'll like it. Basically, education is the key to everything. And I remember that going to school is not the same as being educated, and education is not the same as knowledge. So the difference between education and going to school means that sitting in a building is not going to guarantee that you're going to learn anything. Being educated means that while you're sitting in the building, you actually learn something. But education is different from knowledge because education is anything people are pumping into your head. So when a 9-year-old kid is listening to the Big Booty Ho 2 Chainz song, he's learning what a thought is. He's being educated. Or if I go to a university that teaches me all the wrong things about black history, that whites are superior, blacks are inferior, then I'm being educated, but I'm also being miseducated. Knowledge is when you have information that leads to your empowerment, that is relevant to your experience, that is designed to help you achieve your goals as an empowered African American in this country. Wisdom is when you know how to take this knowledge and you know how to apply it in ways that are going to make your life better, the lives of the people you care about better, the lives of the people in your community better. So wisdom is when you can take this knowledge, process it properly so you can make good decisions. And critical thinking skill to me just means that All the time you're taking stuff into your brain, you're like the bouncer at the door who's checking IDs. You're critically analyzing everything that comes into your mind to make sure it's accurate. You're not letting anybody hijack your brain. You're not letting anybody take over your intellectual space and tell you what to think or how to think. Sometimes even other black people can be harmed by brainwashing or by somebody kind of feeding them something that just isn't true, right? So always never let go of your critical thinking skill, because your critical thinking skill is what you have that allows you to evolve and to adjust to your ever changing environment. So no matter how smart you are, if you don't have critical thinking skill, you're not going to be successful in this world. So that's what going to school should really give you, is critical thinking skill, not just education, not just knowledge, not just wisdom. Now, moving on. In terms of investing in education, I tell people, keep learning. Learning should be a lifelong process. If all you learn is what you learn in school, then you haven't learned very much. The world today, we live in an information-based society. There's more information available at your fingertips than there has ever been throughout all of human history. You can take all the greatest libraries in the history of the world, the greatest universities ever, and put them all together, and they wouldn't amount to what we have available on Google and YouTube and all this other, even Netflix. Even Netflix can educate you if you're watching the right stuff. So always keep learning, because learning is what allows you to prosper. It's what allows you to succeed. Malcolm X always said that education is the passport to the future. So it disappoints me when I see a certain segment, certain group of people in our community who don't value education. I think education should be the number one priority for all of us. When one of my girls had a baby, I told her, I said, you need to start educating that baby in the womb. Education starts in the womb. It doesn't start when the child is 6 and they go to school. It starts in the womb. When that baby gets out, you get that child educational toys so they can always be learning and learning how to think critically. Because by doing that, exercising that brain, your brain is a muscle. By having that child's brain exercised at an early age, that child's going to have an easier ability to adapt to all the learning that's going to take place throughout his or her life. The last point I'll make on that is invest in your kids in terms of their education as well, not just because it's going to help them in the long term in terms of what they do. It's going to help you too. It's also going to help you build a better economic future, because number one, if you have a child who is productive and self-sustaining and becomes an asset in your life, then that person can support you and have your back, as opposed to you constantly having to clean up for somebody who can't take care of themselves economically. Children after the age of 25 or 30 should be assets to their parents, not liabilities. So I'm sorry, call me crazy, call me old school, but you know what? When a child gets over the age of 30 and you're still borrowing money from your mama should be able to borrow money from you. You should be showing up to become an asset to the people who helped you, not a liability, not bringing more problems to their table. So that's one. So if you're older and you're retiring and you're trying to prepare for your financial future, it's hard to do that if you're paying your child's student loans, if you're paying for your child to get out of jail, if you're paying your child's rent and your child's 30, 35 years old. It doesn't make any sense to me. The other reason that it can help you economically is that if you invest in your child, say by getting a tutor. Like, getting a couple of tutors can make all the difference in the world, because then you got attention, you've got the child's receiving the love from somebody who really wants to see them do well. That makes children respond better. That makes them want to do better. So you get that, spend that little bit of money. Maybe it's it can literally be as little as $100 a month out of your budget, something like that. Try to find a tutor. Go to your local university, see if they have a math tutor available that can work with your child one on one, maybe 3 times a week, something like that. And I guarantee it'll make a difference. And what'll happen is that because you've taught your child to value education, because you put them in a position to do well educationally, then they do well in school. Guess what? They're in a position to get scholarships. Well, college education has become so expensive, ridiculously, insanely, horrifically expensive, to the point where people cannot afford to go to college anymore. The generation under the age of, say, 35 or 30, that will be the first generation that will actually die in debt. They will die in debt largely because of two things. One, educational school loans. Number two, healthcare. People cannot, in America, they cannot afford to go to school. They cannot afford to get sick. And this is directly due, in my opinion, to government policies that, made student loans so readily available that schools were able to jack up their tuition and people were still bidding and willing to pay the price, no matter how expensive it was. So now you have schools that normally should only be say 25,000 a year, but they're charging 50, 60,000 a year because they know they can get it, because people will just go borrow the money to get the thing they need, right? Because they see education as I think in economics, what do we call it, an inelastic commodity. Inelastic means that you're going to get it no matter what the economy is doing, no matter how good your financial situation is or how bad. Like cigarettes or liquor tend to be inelastic, where the demand for that commodity does not change even if the price changes or the economy changes. So because education is such a necessity for people, they're willing to bid crazy amounts of money and pay insane amounts because they're like, oh, I'll just borrow it. And so you can leave school and you got $120,000 worth of debt, and you go into this crappy economy that doesn't create jobs the way it used to. We've got jobs, but they're not good jobs, and so you end up trying to pay back $100,000 in student loans, making $15 an hour. And I know a lot of attorneys who are in this situation. That's why I always tell black people, this is why the financial Juneteenth idea is so important for me right now in my mind, important for me to share with you, is that we need people to be able to create their own jobs, create their own industry, to build things, because if you're dependent on corporations to take care of you, it's going to be really difficult for you. The opportunities just aren't there like they used to be. Now, so by getting your child educated early, getting them ready for school, they can get scholarships, which then saves you money. You can literally, let's say for example, you spend $200 a month every year for 10 years to give your child a tutor. So how much does that cost? Let's see, $200 a month times 12 is 2,400. 2,400 times 10. That's $24,000 investment. $24,000 investment, not all at once, over time, which makes it actually an easier investment than it looks like on the surface. So $24,000 investment. You send your child to a top-notch university with a scholarship, and they end up you end up surpassing maybe say $100,000 in loans, maybe $120,000. So that $24,000 investment has led to a 100 or 1,000 plus return on investment, which makes it a good move. So, and then on top of that, you just gotta happy your child. I mean, your kids like you better when you take care of them, when you do the right thing, when you do right by them, when you prepare them for life. Your children are better assets to you. They come by and they support you. My mother made huge sacrifices for me, my sister, and my brother when it came to education. And understand, my mama was, when I was a baby, before my mother married my stepfather, we were living in the projects. My mother was a 17-year-old single mother. A lot of her friends did not understand the way she was raising the kids. They thought she was crazy. But because my mother made those sacrifices for me and my sister and my brother, I'm a professor. My sister is a medical doctor, and my brother went to Cornell University. He got an Ivy League education. He's an entrepreneur. And so what happens is, because my mother made those investments in us, we try to be assets to her. If my mother wants something, we find a way to get it for her. She wants to go on vacation, we come up with the money to send her on vacation. We're not calling saying, "Hey, mama, I need you to bail me out. Hey, mama, can you send me money to pay the rent? Hey, mama, can you hook me up? Can I come live with you for a while?" We're not having to do those things because she made those sacrifices for us back in the day to prepare us for what we're doing right now. So prepare your kids. I think that's important. And when I think about my mother, what really impresses me the most is that most of her friends weren't really doing that. I mean, I do have a lot of friends who ended up in very bad situations, addicted to drugs, in prison, just tough situations. I'll just say that. And I'm not saying anything negative about the people I grew up with, but my mother's approach was not standard. And so I'm not putting my mother on a pedestal in terms of saying that she's better than anybody or that she can do things that other people can't do. But I can certainly say that was something that I saw that I was really impressed by. Now, that's all I really want to say about this. And I want to say congratulations to Harold on this amazing accomplishment. I also want to ask you to please support our new documentary. It's called Resurrecting Black Wall Street. That's where we tell the story about the Black Wall Street massacre. Massacre. Not race riots. Stop letting people tell you that it was a race riot. It wasn't no race riot. It was a massacre where whites, basically jealous whites, not all whites, but jealous whites, went into the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and killed hundreds of people, incarcerated hundreds more, shot people in the street, looted their homes, and systematically burned down the houses, house by house by house, block by block. The state of Oklahoma never paid reparations, and 100 years later, you got kids on the University of Oklahoma campus singing songs about hanging black people from trees, like the kids in that fraternity. So the tradition, it goes way back. It still continues to this day. At the same time, there are things we can learn from that atrocity, particularly about those brave, amazing ancestors who built Black Wall Street in the first place. Many of them spent the next 80 years fighting for reparations because what they had was stolen from them and nobody ever gave it back. So when you see the wealth disparity in America, never let anybody convince you that black people have less wealth than whites because black people are somehow lazy and ignorant and stupid and throw their money away. That's not the entire story. That's not even a fraction of the story. The wealth disparity exists in America because for hundreds of years, whenever blacks built wealth, whites either stole it and or before they could even get a chance to build that wealth, they never gave them the opportunity to have access to it. And we built this country. That's why I believe in reparations. That's why I will always believe in reparations. I think it's crazy for people to somehow try to argue that reparations are not relevant. It's absolutely stupid to me. Well, that's all I really want to say. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. So until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. Don't forget, go check out the documentary. It's at resurrectingbblackwallstreet.com. Resurrectingbblackwallstreet.com. You can watch the trailer on that page. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.